now. This is exciting. I don't know. I've known Nick for years. EITR Technology, CEO, by the way. I don't know that he's ever done a demo in open hour before. Is this a first, Nick, for you?
Um, I think it might be.
As a former SALT project community champion, I would assume that that's been the case. But yeah, I think this is probably a first. So let's send it over to him. The time is yours, sir. Would you like to share the screen?
Um, yeah, let's go ahead and
All right.
share. All right, you should be seeing a screen.
Yeah, we see it. Looks great.
Awesome. So I think it was a couple of open hours ago. Might have been Gareth that gave us a brief overview of salt extensions, right? So salt extensions allow us to take pieces of what is currently in the salt code base and move it out as its own repository and sort of plug in, if you will. Also allows us to develop new plugins for salt that don't have to live inside of the core. And that allows us to iterate on the code faster and sort of maintain it outside of the confines of the core itself. So as it stands right now, I think there are going to be some extensions that are community maintained and some that are core team maintained. And what that list looks like will probably be shaping up over the next few months or so. But one of the ones that was probably the first real brand new from scratch extension because it never lived inside of the salt core is the Prometheus extension. Um, and so essentially what the Prometheus extension allows us to do is group Prometheus related modules into this code base and install that and manage it as a separate plugin. For those not familiar with Prometheus, it's a pretty popular monitoring metrics tool. Uh, and so this was actually developed as part of a collaboration with one of my customers. And if you click on the documentation link in the repository, it should bring you to read the docs here. Where right now we have a placeholder for an engine module, but that has not actually been created yet. So all we have right now is actually this Prometheus text file returner, which allows you to output a metrics file to the file system that then can be read in by node exporter, which basically reports metrics from a system to Prometheus. So normally that might include like CPU and memory usage and things like that. It can read in this separate file that's created as part of the returner process in order to have salt specific metrics sent to the same system that aggregates all of your other monitoring and metrics. So at that documentation page, you'll see a lot of different configuration options that I'm not really going to go through today, unless anybody has specific questions. But essentially, what the output of that becomes is down below here. I show the configuration file that I set up to just get the basics of what we see here into the system. We have some Prometheus text file configuration parameters that we can pass in via miniconfig. We have the returner set up to the Prometheus text file returner that is part of the Prometheus extension. And then we have a scheduled job that just runs this dummy state every 15 minutes. And so when that information is gathered up, we can create dashboards in Grafana, like I have shown up here on the top. So you can see things like, hey, how many minions are in my environment right now? Like if you wanted to use that as a status or trend line or something like that. You can see that I have all of my systems here on this graph, and they're all in this bottom line, except for this yellow guy here that is minion 2. It has one state failure, and I have a threshold just below that. So once something comes up and has state failures, we can get an alert, we can investigate it. Basically the sky's the limit. Grafana and Prometheus are very powerful tools. We can show salt versions. So, we could see, oh, do we have any old salt versions within our environment that need to be upgraded? Chunga brought up the CVEs and the fact that we should be upgrading. We could use a tool like this to see inside of our normal monitoring metrics environment, what things we should be looking at in order to upgrade those minions and keep them in line with all the CVs that are out there. Other interesting things that might be part of the metrics, elapsed time. So you can see that usually we run around the same amount of total elapsed time for that dummy state, but we had some long time frames here, or longer than normal, on minion 3. So that might be something, if somebody has extra time, maybe they can correlate this against like CPU and memory usage on that particular system. Maybe something was happening on that system during that time frame. And if it happens consistently, maybe it's worth checking out. So really, this just gives us the ability to jam those salt-specific metrics into the same format that we would expect to see our normal monitoring metrics, and create pretty graphs and things like that in order to visualize all that information. And so I think we're on the threshold of Q&A anyway. So if there are any questions that need answering in regard to this, happy to do so now.
Very cool, Nick. Thanks for the demo. Yeah, let's have some questions. Any questions for Nick? We're heading into Q&A. No question.
It creates a text file, and then somewhere you upload that every 15 minutes. Is that what that schedule does?
So the other part of this is the Prometheus and Grafana setup itself, right? So our system is set up in Salt such that it runs a state apply for this dummy state. It could be like a high state or anything else that you care to do on some interval. And that's kind of where it stops, right? The returner writes this text file. Then we pick up the other parts of the infrastructure, which is Node Exporter, which is part of the Prometheus ecosystem, resides on the same system. It picks up that text file, reads it, sends the metrics back to the Prometheus infrastructure. And then Grafana reads all of that information out of Prometheus and allows you to do pretty pictures like this.
Okay, so the Salt extension is just dumping a certain expected format into a text file that is later ingested by an agent running on the machine.
Correct. And okay. When we go down the road of an engine, we have a prototype of that with my customer, but we haven't open sourced it yet. Essentially, what it will provide is Prometheus generally works on like a scraping principle, where it expects to reach out and hit really lightweight API endpoints that, if you were to just look at them, are basically the same format as the text files that we're writing out. And so an engine would provide that API as just like a constantly updating web page with the metrics of the system or whatever. That could be then scraped by Prometheus.
So this is basically customizable. You could use it for customizable telemetry then.
Absolutely.
Would something like this be conceptually portable to other monitoring systems, like say Zabbix or something?
Conceptually, yes.
Does this all occur on the master, or is this per minion?
This is per minion.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really cool.
How do you avoid duplicates? Does it just wipe the file after it uploads, or?
Yeah. So I don't know exactly how it's keeping track of it, but it might be registering with the inodes or hashing it or something like that, and only reading it when it updates. But there's also timestamps, I believe, inside of that file. It's been a little bit since I took a look at one.
Does it get huge?
No, it will not append. So let's see here. I believe there's timestamps in here. Maybe that's just in regard to the last started time, the last completed time. So all the timestamps that it appends to the information is actually when Node Exporter is scraping it. So it's just checking to see when this file updates. This is the default location for the file, by the way. You can change the configuration to put it wherever you'd like. A lot of people consolidate all of their external exposition text file formats into a single location so that Node Exporter can just look one place for all of the files.
So it's awesome.
Cool.
Yeah. Anything else for Nick? Jace is clapping his hands. Let's give Nick a round of applause, shall we? Well done. Well done, Nick. EITR Technologies, go check them out. I'm sure they have a website or something. Right, Nick?
Yeah, EITR.tech. Incidentally, we have a bunch of blog articles at our website that are salt related, so they might be interesting to some folks.
Yeah, and you also recently did a everything you need to know about salt featurette or a showcase or something like that on a podcast. Tell us about that real quick.
Oh yeah, I was on the Adventures in DevOps podcast. It turns out that one of the folks who hosts that every now and again wanted to get more information about salt for like something related to his job. So he put the call out on social media, and I happened to see it and ended up on that podcast. And so it's basically just like that guy and his fellow co-hosts picking my brain about salt for a while. So might be interesting for folks to listen to as well. It's Adventures in DevOps, put out by Top End Devs.
Cool. From what I hear, I haven't had a chance to check it out yet because I've been on vacation, but from what I hear, it's great. So, and thanks for doing it, man. Thanks for giving us the love. We appreciate it.